I'm making this video today because I almost lost my mind painting cabinets for a fifth wheel that I bought, and I wish I would have known what I know now 2 weeks ago. I would be done, more than done by now. So I'm just going to give you a few quick tips so that you can paint cabinets without going absolutely insane like I have come very close to doing. And I'm just going to fly through it quick. I didn't even get all my stuff because I got a video camera and I can't figure out how to make it work, or the tripod. So my phone is literally taped up with painter's tape onto the tripod right now. So I can't go get everything. I can't. I gotta do this so my phone doesn't fall. So the first thing that you want to do after you take off your cabinets, I've got like 18 million of them, is, well, when you're taking off your cabinets, some people label them. I didn't label it because you can kind of tell what size they are. But what I did do is like for the kitchen, I put a little plastic baggie with the screws and the latches and all that stuff, and I just labeled it kitchen kitchen left side or something like that. Just because I'll never remember what the screws go with what. So if you're like me, then you probably want to do that. Let me just make sure this is recording. Okay, I think it is recording still. Probably crooked. If so, sorry. This shirt shrunk now that I've been wearing it to paint. I've been covered in paint for, yeah. Just label the screws and stuff like that, because I'm guessing that'll be helpful. Next tip is to use primer, even if it says paint and primer in one. If it's just wood, it's probably okay. But if you're trying to cover a hideous color like bright 90s teal, you definitely want to also buy a primer. High hide primer means that it's gonna hide a lot of stuff. So, something I learned. I'm gonna cover this up. That's another thing you want to do. Try to keep your paint from drying out, which mine is doing right now because I just had to make this video so I could help others. The next tip is clean the cupboards first. I didn't clean these first. I thought since I was going to sand them, it didn't matter if I cleaned them first. I think it matters because I cleaned the cupboards in there first, and it's going a lot easier, like the actual built into the wall cupboards. So clean them first. My dad told me to use mineral paint thinner basically, but you could just clean them with like vinegar and water, some borax, that combination, like equal parts vinegar and borax mixed with warm water, however much. That's good for killing mildew and stuff like that. You want to clean them, not like soak them, but just like, and you could even use like a sponge and the back of the sponge, the hard side, kind of scruffle it up a little bit. So you clean them and then you wipe them off, make sure they're rinsed off. You can use alcohol, some people use alcohol. So then after they're dry, then you want to sand. You want to start out with, depending on the condition of your cupboards, because there's tons of different sandpaper that I now know, like all these different sandpapers. Luckily my dad has tons and tons of sandpaper, like even up to like automobile sand. Well, that happened because I had the camcorder plugged in. I thought that's what was wrong. My dog, her leash she got her leash wrapped around it and then pulled the cord. Start sanding with anywhere from 100 to 120 or 25 to 150, and just like go over it and get the shiny stuff off. You don't have to sand like crazy, just sand enough to get like the shiny stuff off because you want it to be able to stick. As you progress, so after you do the primer, you're going to want to sand it again. I have a range of 150 to 600. It really is a good idea to sand in between each step. I just wanted to go fast, but that was not smart, because I would have saved a lot of time if I would have just done this a different way, and instead of glopping on a bunch of it, done it the right way. So you want to do thin layers, and then you want to sand in between each layer if you actually want it to look nice, and not have to later take an X-Acto knife and scrape off globs, which I have done. My sister was helping me too, and she did a great job, but she was a bit heavy-handed with it. We both were. I like to prime it. Like if you prime it, then you can actually see cracks and things like that. So if there's any imperfections, you want to get some caulk, and make sure it's not a silicone caulk, because you're going to want to sand it a little bit and paint it. But silicone, apparently my dad said silicone, you can't do that. So make sure it's not a silicone caulk. Then you want to go through, if you have, like I had all these little, where the board was here and the board was here, there's little cracks. So when you paint it with primer, you notice that. I painted it with paint and noticed that, but the primer will help a lot. So then you want to fill in the cracks with your caulk. You just want to get a little bit out and smash it in there. You can get your finger a little bit wet with water and then just kind of make it even, go back and forth across the crack, like up and down, back and forth, and that should fill it in really well. And then just let it dry. Then you can kind of sand it a little bit and then paint right over it. So you could do that before you prime, but it was helpful to have a little bit of paint there so you could actually see, oh gosh, that's going to look awful. It's going to be a black spot. So then after you fill in all of your cracks, then you're painting, and then you want to progress from like whatever your coarsest sandpaper is through as you're doing your steps, like maybe do a 220 and then do a 320 and then a 420, you know, 420, all the way up to 500, 600, whatever it is that you feel like doing, whatever look it is that you want to achieve. You can do as many coats as you want. That's pretty much it for the painting part. So here's some tips that are going to make your life a lot easier as you're doing this process. You are going to end up with dust everywhere. You're going to have tons of dust. So I'm kind of lucky because my dad has an air compressor, so I'm standing here in his garage, and I can just take the air compressor after I've sanded and blow in all the corners and everything, and that gets a lot of the dust off. If you don't have an air compressor though, just go to an office supply store or Walmart or anywhere like that. Where's my dog? Okay. Sometimes she gets stuck around something and she can pull her way out of the harness. Just go and buy the little compressed air that you could shoot in your keyboard. That'll work fine. After you do that, then you're gonna blow your compressed air or your air compressor, whichever way you go. This step will make everything so much better. Then you're gonna have your rag. You can have a damp rag for the dust. Susie, you can't watch me.
Oh, I was just gonna put this in the
Go ahead.
receptacle.
This is my aunt. She's making a cameo. No, I don't even think anybody will see you.
No one.
Look, I've got my iPhone taped up.
Hi, little Misha. Hi, Misha.
She'll make you a little quick cameo. This is Misha. She's my little rescue Pomeranian, rescue Chihuahua / pit bull. I swear that's what she is. Okay, moving right along. After you do the compressed air, you sprayed all that, you got all your little dust off, then you want to take either a damp rag or a dry one, depending on how dusty it still is, and just wipe everything off really quick, like, and anything that the air didn't get. Another tip is you want to do with something called cutting in. That means that you want to get the corners of everything first, and any detail work you want to get in there first, and then after you do that with your brush, you want to use the roller and smooth it all out. And you don't want to wait so long that it starts to dry and then it starts to stick to itself and get all tacky. I learned this also all the hard way, and paint, especially if it's water-based paint, I think oil-based paint probably stays wet a lot longer and you've got a lot more ability to do whatever you want. But, oh shoot, I turned this on the wrong side. I was painting this side. Water-based paint's gonna dry really fast, so you kind of have to paint fast. So you're cut it in the corners, cover it completely. If you have like ridges like this, paint on the corner and then slap it on right here too, so that it kind of starts to go over the side a little bit. Actually, you don't really need to do that. I just like to do it so I know that that's covered, because sometimes when you're doing your roller, you don't get the edge as well, but you can or cannot do that. Yeah, cutting it is important, and it will make everything look way better, and I didn't learn that until week 2. First you take your paintbrush, you cut in all the corners, whatever maybe little spots you want to do, then you're gonna roll everything, and then you're done. I was doing this completely wrong. Make sure whatever paint you have, you look at the paintbrush and you also look at the roller, and you make sure that it matches whatever paint that you have, because there's different tools for different paints. Who would have known? This little funny setup here, I've got like my paint. I'm using this because my other one is holding primer right now. I think it's better to use a smaller container because then the paint, there's less surface area, the paint doesn't dry as fast, especially for water-based paint, like I said. But I was just gonna do this really fast. Now I had to stop and make a video, so this is probably all hard as a rock and I'm gonna have to go rinse it out. Whatever. Oh, and these are handy too. They look really weird when you don't have a lot of coats on, but after you start to get coats on, like, don't worry if you're painting like it looks like crap first, but after you get a few coats going, hope my dog doesn't knock it over again, it'll start looking better. So these little spongy things with the corner looking, this helps a lot for getting in corners and making sure it doesn't all like puddle and just look like a blobby mess. Something that's going to make this go a lot faster for you, so you don't have to just keep moving things and getting paint all over, that I have found is I just got, you know, the little carousels that you can put your drinks on, your cups on, that goes like this. I got this. I put a couple of pieces of plywood on it to balance, and then foam. Foam is amazing. This is like workout foam. My dad's got it in the bottom of his boat. One side's all like rough. The other side is super smooth, and as long as it's clean, This stuff is going to be amazing because when you're waiting for things to dry, don't put it on newspaper. I learned that was wrong. The newspaper just sticks to it. And when you're leaning things places, it turns into kind of a mess. So if you get this foam, you can even just cut it in little thin strips so hardly any of it is touching, and like do it on the corners or do it anywhere you want. I've read that some people put thumbtacks into it and turn it upside down, but then you have to fill in the holes later. And as long as you just like let it dry a little bit, then you can turn it over, put it on this, and it'll be nice and smooth. Put that there on top of that, put your cabinet door on there, and then voila. That's a little bit lopsided, but you get what I'm saying. You can just turn as you go, and it is so wonderful, especially for painting things like the sides. And then my last tip is not even really a tip because I haven't done it yet, but this is water-based Minwax Polycrylic protective finish. And at first I was just going to literally put 2 coats of paint on and hang them up. That's what I was going to do. And then I realized that it was going to look horrible, and also I had no idea what I was doing. So now I know you have to do all the steps. You can't just get an all-in-one paint and primer and just do 2 coats and be done. Do the primer, do however many coats you want. Thinner is better. Sanding in between each step, or at least every other step, it seems counterintuitive just because it's like, oh, this is gritty, but it does make it so much smoother and nicer, especially as you're getting finer and finer. This is going to be my top coat. This is a protective finish, crystal clear finish, ultra fast drying. And there's other kinds of top coats. Read about them first. Some of them work with different kinds of paint. Oil-based paint will have its own top coat, and then some of them, if you're doing white, make sure you research a bit first, because certain kinds will turn it yellow, will turn white yellow. You won't notice it with colors, but like there was all these before and after pictures of a certain kind of like top coat, and I've got a jar or a can of this that I'm going to use in the trailer to paint on everything. But I thought I would make my life easier, obviously, and buy the spray, but now I've realized I have to find a place to spray it on so it doesn't go all over everything. I have to move all the cars, so by trying to save time, I have learned that really I should have just done this the correct way. Cover everything with newspaper. Just don't put your things on newspaper. Use these. I just cut them in little strips, and I have them like all these long strips with everything all balanced nicely. And if you don't have a lot of space like I do and have to put things outside, wait for it to dry a little bit and then cover it with the tarp or with the drop cloth, with anything, because if you leave it outside, first of all, bugs love to go after. If it's white, bugs are going to go after it. And if you live anywhere with a tree anywhere near or a bush at all, it's all going to go and stick everywhere, and you're going to think you can brush it off, and really it's already stuck on there. Then I think that's everything. Hopefully this will help you in your cabinet painting adventure, and truly all of this would have been great to know 2 weeks ago. 2.5 weeks ago now. Best of luck to you in your painting adventures, and wish me luck that this turns out like something I can live with at the very least. Have a good day. I'm off to work now. Bye.